Hello everyone, and welcome back to Network 27. I'm Alderman Walter Burnett, Alderman of the 27th Ward. First of all, I want to thank all of the people who help us to put the show together, and also, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for watching the show. As you know, Network 27 is shown twice a month, every second and fourth Tuesday at 9 p.m. So make sure you watch. We also, you can get on our email list by calling our office at 312-432-1995, and we email a video of the show. You can also watch it on YouTube, and so it gets around. I'd like to thank you all again for watching. Want to just tell you about our Stand School Picnic that's going on this month. August the 26th. As you know, we try and have buses to pick up all of the seniors, particularly the ones in the senior buildings, and also all of the children. We try and pick the children up at their local schools, but we don't have people to babysit your kids, right? So you got to keep that in mind. No one's going to watch your kids, so hopefully you will be there with them, but we would pick them up and you up too. You can find out more information about our picnic at 312-432-1995. We'd like to thank everyone who contributed to the picnic. We'd like to thank everyone to volunteer. If you would like to volunteer for the picnic, and we can always use help, we get about 5,000 people. We feed all of the folks. We give out school supplies. You can call our office, as I said, at 312-432-1995. I want to introduce to you a guest who's a good friend of mine. Matter of fact, we've been in the trenches together, fighting for affordable housing. They are one of the prominent, she represents one of the prominent affordable housing organizations, I would have to say in this country, organization called Bickerdike. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you Joy Aruguete. Joy Aruguete from Bickerdike. How you doing, Joy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Good.
Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
Why don't you tell the audience who Joy Aruguete is?
Well, I've been the the Chief Executive Officer at Bickerdike for the last 22 years. Excuse me, I was born and raised in Chicago, and love the city and love the neighborhood, and have really dedicated my life to social justice issues and advocating and fighting on behalf of Chicago's residents, and raised my kids in the city and love the city and love the organization.
So before you started working at Bickerdike, what were you doing?
I was the executive director for an organization called Southwest Women Working Together that provided services, affordable housing, counseling, employment, and parenting assistance, parent help to women across the south side of Chicago.
Mm-hmm. So before that, what did you do?
Before that, I worked for an organization called Housing Opportunities for Women.
Okay.
And before that, I both was in school, but also worked in the Sister City movement and working to create sister parishes between U.S. parishes and parishes in El Salvador.
So that was with the Catholic Church?
It was an ecumenical effort. So we worked with Catholic churches. We worked with
Fantastic.
So, and now we supported and took part in economic development.
How old were you when you was doing that?
In my 20s.
In your 20s?
Yeah, in my 20s.
That's great. So you went to school. Mm-hmm. What did you study in school? Social work?
Social work. Mm-hmm.
So it's unique, Joy, that you study social work, but you are so astute with development and numbers and fees and all those things. Mm-hmm. So I would have thought that you took up finance, because you but that's great. So you took social work and then your life evolved to where you are today.
So I started college in accounting. And once that tax accounting set in, I knew that I would be looking for something else. Tax accounting, my goodness. I got a lot of respect for those tax accountants out there. And
Okay.
I was very interested in political science, but I also was very interested in social work. And social work, a lot of people think of social work like case management and counseling, but social work really has its roots in organizing and community development. And if you look at Jane Addams' early work, Jane Addams really was an organizer and a community developer. And she did a lot of social justice work. And I went into social work with that in mind. My areas of focus in social work were community development and organizing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm learning a lot about you, man, that I didn't know. So it's all coming together. That's great. A little accounting, a little social work, some development stuff. A lot of affordable housing.
Yeah.
I didn't know about all the women things that you had going on. That's fantastic. So Joy, tell us about Bickerdike.
Bickerdike is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year.
Really? Fantastic.
We are one of the oldest. We are the oldest in Chicago and one of the oldest in the country.
Oldest what?
Not-for-profit community development corporations. And Bickerdike was founded by people in the area, actually organizations.
In the area.
In Westtown and Humboldt Park.
Okay.
Who saw, this was before the Community Reinvestment Act, and so there was a lot of redlining by banks, and a lot of the housing stock was owned by people who did not live in the community, and they couldn't sell. And so there was a lot of arson in the community, a lot of demolition, and a lot of negative real estate activity. And so they came together, these 5 organizations, and they said, somebody has to be a builder. Because there weren't developers at that time. They really were called builders. And so they created Bickerdike, and they named the organization, which is somewhat oddly named, but after a man named George Bickerdike, who was one of the earliest developers in the area. In fact, there's a subdivision called Bickerdike Subdivision, if you look on the legal description of land. And with the idea that Bickerdike would begin to do some of the only real estate development activity that was going on. The Community Reinvestment Act and redlining ended about 5 years after Bickerdike was started in 1967. And all of Bickerdike's early work was infill housing, so building on these vacant lands that had been created by demolition. And we sold those homes for a very affordable price to people who live in the community. And then we got into rental housing because most of the rental housing in the neighborhood was owned by people who didn't live in the neighborhood. And so we began to develop rental housing, also new construction on vacant land, because there were thousands of vacant lots that dotted the community. And we have become known today largely as a rental developer, although we've developed co-ops, and we still have had a fairly recent for sale project that we've done.
What is a co-op?
A co-op is a model where people come together and they pool they collectively form an ownership corporation, and that corporation gets financing for a building, and then each of those people who's come together owns, there's different models. It's very common in New York. There's a lot of them in Chicago, though it's less common in Chicago. But those individuals own a share of stock, usually, or some component of membership in the corporation. And sometimes it's equal and undivided, and other times it's by bedroom size or by how much you paid. In our case, we did limited equity co-ops because of the tools that we used for financing. But that's generally what a co-op is. So the co-op corporation owns the buildings, but the people who live in the co-op have control over what happens in the building. Usually they get outside management, or they collectively manage it. Yeah.
So this way they have a stake in the community,
Yes.
so to speak, or a stake in the development.
Yeah.
So they're not just renters,
Sure.
they're owners,
Yeah.
right? So That's great. So your first developments were in Westtown and Humboldt Park, and those developments were scatter site or infill housing.
Yep.
You sold those, right? Then you
Those
started.
same
Then you started doing rental housing, right? And some of those rental houses, do you still own those?
Oh yes, in fact,
So I haven't known you to sell anything
Yeah.
in a long time, right?
Right. Well, we're in the business of buying and developing. We don't really sell unless it's specifically a for sale project. And so, so you're right. Like I said, we're mostly known for our rental development.
Right.
And but the oldest rental units that we developed were almost 35 years ago.
Really?
And believe it or not, we just closed 2 weeks ago on the financing to recapitalize the project. And now we're doing work in those 318 units. Our first two developments, we combined them into a new development and got bond financing and 4% low-income housing tax credits, probably too complicated to talk about. We're just beginning what will be a 2-year process of rehabbing the units. And, people will be moved out for 4 weeks and then move back into a completely rehabbed unit.
So where are these 300 units?
They're all over. There are 318 units in 68 buildings. A number of them are in the 27th ward. We also have those units are in the 26th ward, the 1st ward, and that's and some in the 35th ward. So, so they're really scattered across. Most of them are townhome buildings that in a building cluster have, maybe.
So I know you have some. What's
two.
some of the neighborhoods? Eckhart Park. Do you have some in
Right,
Wicker Park?
Wicker Park.
Wicker Park.
Bucktown.
Bucktown.
In Humboldt Park, of
Humboldt
course.
Park. All the parks,
Logan Square.
Right? Logan Square.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your houses were built before these areas became popular.
Absolutely.
So I would have to say that probably your homes have sparked development in those communities because no one else wanted to build at that time, right?
It's a tricky thing.
Yeah. So you guys almost like I always say, affordable housing to me primes communities, right? No one else wants to build, but people start seeing these new things getting built in the community. Then folks say, hey, they building over there. Maybe we need to build over there. Next thing you know, you guys are like the artists. The artists move to communities. They make a community vibrant. And then they get priced out of the neighborhood. They have to move. Well, fortunate for you guys, you may get priced. The neighborhood may get pricey, but you still are there.
Absolutely.
Right?
And our mission is community, sort of the shortest part of our mission is community development by and for the low and moderate income residents of Westtown, Humboldt Park, Logan Square, Hermosa, and Avondale. And we're very much in
Avondale. Where's Avondale? That's way up north, huh?
No, Avondale is right, just above Logan Square.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and next to it, Hermosa.
So that's in the 35th ward.
Yeah, 35th. And,
Okay.
Some other ones up there too. Yeah.
Okay.
But I like to think of us as sort of building housing to revitalize the community, and then making sure that people in the neighborhood are recipients of that revitalization and not victims of it. And so in some of the areas that we talked about, we have some of the only affordable housing that exists in those neighborhoods.
Right.
Because we have a very long-term commitment. Many private owners at the point of 30 years or before would have gladly taken the 68 buildings that we're preserving
and paid you a lot of money
and gone and done something as luxury housing. So we're very committed to not just the development of the community, but making sure that local residents are the beneficiaries and that they can enjoy the fruits of community development and be a part of it. So community engagement is also an important part of our work.
So your whole thing is about empowering the community also.
Absolutely.
And then your residents, they become a part of the community also. You all insist on that.
Yeah.
So you kind of organize folks that live in your
surely
buildings,
do.
right?
Yeah.
So you teach them how to be advocates, you teach them how to advocate for the community, but also how to advocate for other people who may need housing like them, right?
Yeah.
So you were very instrumental in helping me with the affordable housing ordinances, the ARO.
Yeah. And you're an awesome leader in,
well, thank you.
in the council and making sure that happens.
And both ordinances, but you're also a board member of the Rehab Network. Are you the chairman of the board? Or?
I am.
So you're
The
chairman
Chicago
of the
Rehab
board.
Network.
So tell us, so the Chicago Rehab Network, and I probably need to get them on the show too. That's in a whole nother show. But they kind of keep up with the trends and nationwide on affordable housing and try to help preserve and advocate to preserve affordable housing in the city.
Absolutely. Development without displacement. And actually, Bickerdike was one of the founders of the Chicago Rehab Network.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It was organizations like Bickerdike that came together and said, you know, we need to collectivize our voice and we need to be able to work on things that together through a body where we can all come together. And that's how the Rehab Network was born. And with the idea of building a collective voice to be able to advocate for resources so that all of us can do what we do, not just financial resources, but from a policy vantage point, and then providing information to ourselves and to the community at large and to policymakers like yourself. And so the Chicago Rehab Network has been a really important institution. Now, the Rehab Network is 40 years old this year. And so we were about 10 years old when we got them started, working with other organizations like Bickerdike in Chicago. And the Rehab Network has been going strong since that time. So I'm happy to say I've been a board member for almost all my years at Bickerdike.
So what other organizations have come from Bickerdike?
Westtown Bikes was born from Bickerdike. We hired Alex Wilson to come and do a Build-A-Bike program with the kids that lived in our housing. And he did that program for a couple years, and he's a big thinker, and I supported that. And he had this idea to create this not-for-profit that could really launch this at scale, to do Build-A-Bike programs and to increase bike adoption by children, you know, African American, Latino children in lower income areas, and and they've been going strong ever since. He had an idea to do a bicycle shop that would help support the not-for-profit, and they opened Ciclo Urbano on Division Street, and so that was a direct result of our work, and they stay very much connected to the organization.
And what else?
So,
is there other organizations?
You know, well, our second executive director, Bruce Gottschall, he was our second executive director, and he left Bickerdike to start the Midwest chapter, the Chicago-based chapter of the Neighborhood Housing Services.
NHS.
And he was there until he retired.
So Bruce came from you all and started NHS.
He sure did.
So NHS is almost like a national organization now, isn't it?
They're part of a national organization, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. So I'm learning something here today.
Yeah.
So what else? Come on, give me some more. That's great.
I mean, those are the big ones. But we have, you know, I myself get surprised about Bickerdike's history from time to time. So,
wow.
But we've had a long and very rich time in the community and engagement of residents, and and around the city. And I mean, Bickerdike is not just has our work is local, but we work also at an advocacy level citywide. Definitely. And we have we're active and participate statewide. And also we have a national presence through, I serve on the Enterprise Community Partners Community Leadership Council, which are people like me that work in community development corporations across the country. And it's an advisory board or leadership board for Enterprise Community Partners. So.
Fantastic. You guys advocate for a lot of different people.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you have how many units of housing?
Almost 1,100.
1,100 units. you all manage those houses?
We do. Those are the ones that we've managed. We've
So
actually developed 1,600 units.
That's a big management company.
It is.
Yeah, so that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's like a corporation. That is a corporation.
Yes, we manage through
So you
Bickerdike
manage
Apartments.
1,600 units? Okay.
No, we manage 1,100 units.
1,100 units.
But we've developed 1,600 units.
You develop 1,600. So when you say you develop, so you all are developers too, but if I'm not mistaken, you all had created a construction company at one time.
Absolutely.
And what was that construction company?
Humble Construction Company was born actually out of the one of the single family projects that we did. We were able to get CETA funds, which is a sort of an older funding program to link construction, local employment in the construction field to our affordable housing development work. And when that project wrapped up, there was, I've seen old literature that referred to them as a roving band of workers. And so they decided with the executive director at the time to come together and form a construction company that would affiliate with the Carpenters Union. So our trade would be carpentry, but we would also act as general contractors. And that allowed us to create jobs for local residents and link it with our affordable housing development work. And we had an agreement with the Carpenters Union that if there weren't people from our neighborhoods on their list, that we could sponsor people into the union. And so we sponsored quite a few people into the union.
Wow.
Which was a big deal.
So that's how you empowered a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So you had some of your residents who lived in your buildings were working for a construction company that you all created. That's like empowerment, man.
Yeah.
That's great.
So the last couple buildings we've used another contractor, but that contractor has brought some of our workers from Humble Construction onto their crew, and that was part of the agreement with them building Nelson Mandela apartments.
Fantastic.
So and they did a terrific job. So I was worried because part of being your own general contractor is having control over the construction process, being able to use subcontractors that you know are from the community or will hire from the community, and just to use every opportunity possible to carry out Bickerdike's mission. And they've really been quite good at using local subs and hiring people from the community, and so now we actually, the same general contractor is doing the work on Westtown Housing Preservation, which is that 318 unit preservation project.
Who is that? Is that Lynn
Lynn
Mathis?
Mathis.
Okay, so Lynn incorporated a lot of your folks into his program.
Yeah.
That's great, yeah. Well, for the record, their company is in our ward, so over on Green and Halsted, long time.
I think they're more social minded than a lot of general contractors.
Yeah, I like Lynn Mathis. They never hesitate to hire people from the community. I think that's great that you all have empowered folks. So there may be people in the unions now who may be contractors.
Absolutely.
Who got their start with Bickerdike.
Absolutely. In fact, we know that there's we know that there's a woman that became a superintendent and was doing hotel building in Las Vegas. And there are people that are general foremen and foremans and journeymen carpenters and that are working for other companies. Yeah.
So Bickerdike, you all in my ward. In our ward, you name the developments that you have in our ward.
So I'm going to go backwards.
Go backwards.
So we just finished Nelson Mandela Apartments, which is 72 units and 13 buildings, and we completed construction just earlier this year, 2 months ahead of schedule. Then Rosa Parks Apartments, which is the building that we're in, one of the buildings, that's 94 units and 8 buildings, all in Humboldt Park. Harold Washington Unity Co-op we did in 2002, and that's 87 units in 18 buildings, and with all kinds of building types. And I remember when we did that project in your ward, that people were wondering, like, oh, where did all this condo development going up? They didn't know it was affordable housing.
They were accusing me of letting condos push them out of the neighborhood, and it was affordable housing.
And then going east, we have, in your ward, we have Our Westtown Housing Partners, which just was recapitalized, that's part of what now is Westtown Housing Preservation.
Great.
So
that's so you kind of have some
Victory Apartments. We have Victory
We
Apartments.
call that
buildings in your ward.
Eckhart Park.
Right, Eckhart
So
Park.
you have some houses that's in Eckhart Park that's been there for a long time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I inherited that area
Yeah.
years ago, maybe 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we also have some vacant land in your ward that, we are holding for future development. Do something really special. So
good.
Yeah.
That's great. So so you empower these folks. They work for you. Talked a little bit about the rents.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us. You say affordable. What's affordable?
So yeah, that's like the $100 million question. What's affordable? And so there's a lot of definitions of affordability, but the definition that most people use is the one that is HUD's definition. And so HUD says that in order not to be cost burdened, you shouldn't be paying more than 30% of your income in housing costs. And so we target our affordable housing to people who are at 60% and below of the area median income. And 60% of the area median income for a family of four, just to use an example, 100% of area median income for a family of four is about $75,000. So like $48,000 would be 60% for a family of four. And then we've tried to, even within a particular development, to have different levels of affordability. So, for instance, in Rosa Parks, there are some units that are 60%, some units that are targeted for 50%, some units targeted for 40% income earners, and we even have a handful of units that are targeted for people earning 30% and below. Yeah. So we try to reach as far as we can to provide affordable housing for a whole spectrum of income earners in the city. And
some of those different levels come from different funding too, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Because certain funding encourages you to have your rents at a certain level, mm-hmm. yeah, right? Absolutely. So what are all of the different fundings that this is like every time I go to your ribbon cuttings, mm-hmm. You have a whole bunch of people there, mm-hmm. and half the people there are different funding groups that you got money from, right? Between the city, the state, the banks, the mm-hmm. HUD, the this, mm-hmm. the that, you leverage so many types of mm-hmm. dollars. Tell us, how do you put all this together? How many different funding groups that you have to go to? Mm-hmm. And then what are the different, and people don't understand this because people will come to me and say, hey, I saw you on TV with Bickerdike and they had a vacant apartment. Mm-hmm. Can I get that apartment? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, you can see if your income mm-hmm. meets it. And this may be an apartment for someone mm-hmm. who makes 30%, right? Mm-hmm. Where another apartment next door may be for somebody who makes 60% of median income. Yeah. And that's based on how you got your funding. Yeah. You have to have a certain amount of units for different funding groups that you got the money for. So can you explain that a little bit and the different funding levels and different funding groups if mm-hmm. you got your money from those mm-hmm. different groups? So I think of affordable housing financing like lasagna financing, mm-hmm. meaning it's just packed with layers of financing. Mm-hmm. And the number one tool in the United States today for affordable housing development is the low-income housing tax credit. Mm-hmm. And that is the tool that a lot of people rely on, and it's a tool that we use. And you have two types, right? 9% and 4%. 9% and 4%. Right. You can get 9% credits or 4% credits. The mm-hmm. 9% credits are competitive. 4% credits are not competitive. So. But both of them have the same threshold for the what you pay in rent, right? So you can you elect as a developer if you're going to target your units toward people at 50% or below, or 60% or below, or the combination of the two. Mm-hmm. And so our earlier developments, most of them were at 50% and below, but as these neighborhoods have evolved, we've tried to
increase, sort of broaden the range of people we serve, because we find that there are a lot of, people who are working full-time, working two jobs that still can't afford to live in the neighborhood. So that's why we started to pick our ceiling up to 60% of area median income. But the low-income housing tax credit is a tool that most of us use. There's HOME, which is a federal block grant dollars meant for affordable housing.
So low-income housing tax credits come from whom? Which part of government?
So surprisingly enough, they come from the Internal Revenue Service. This was a program that was created under Ronald Reagan.
Really?
And it's a tax program, so
the rich guys can write some money off.
Or corporations.
Or corporations,
if they have a tax liability, they can offset it by
but it comes through
credit.
different government agencies. They come through the city.
It's an IRS program, and an allocation of low-income housing tax credits usually goes to the State Housing Authority. Illinois, through home rule and a lot of advocacy efforts, was able to get an allocation of tax credits just for the city of Chicago. So for Chicago projects, we can seek Chicago low-income housing tax credits. We can seek tax credits from the Illinois Housing Development Authority, or both. Sometimes you get tax credits from both.
Okay, and HOME money comes from?
HOME comes from, it's a federal block grant program, again, through either of those two agencies, through the City of Chicago or the Illinois Housing Development Authority. And I believe, and then CDBG, which is also a block grant program.
Community Development Block Grant.
Community Development Block Grant, which is for more than just housing.
So HOME and CDBG, what's their levels of rents if you got those fundings?
So,
is it
you
60?
mean affordability?
Yeah,
or
affordability.
So they pretty much, they have the same, similar to the...
So all of the federal have pretty much the same?
No, different programs have different levels, but most of them are using the same guidelines as low-income housing tax credit. It's the low-income housing tax credit is sort of the core financing, but it doesn't provide enough. And so we work to bring in additional sources of financing, like HOME, like CDBG, like in Chicago, a lot of projects use tax increment financing, which we've also had the benefit of using TIFs. TIF money, which affordable housing hasn't always been an eligible purpose, but it has been for about 20 years. And then there's trust fund dollars that are administered by the state, which have not been available for about the last decade, but prior to that were, and we're hoping that they'll come back. There's grant money that you can get for incorporating environmental sustainability and energy saving components in the development.
So is that
like in this
is that
project?
why all of your projects have all this environmental? It's good for the environment, but you also
it's good
get
for the environment,
grants
and
for it.
But mostly, I think this project is the first comprehensively green project that we did, meaning Rosa Parks Apartments, and we really wanted to look at doing something, doing a model of comprehensive sustainability and housing design. And then this Rosa Parks Apartments was a real learning lesson for us in terms of what are the things that we really liked, what are the things that we could even do better at, what are the things that we would do a little bit differently. We learned a lot in this project. And we continue to build our knowledge with every project. So for instance, this project has high efficiency furnaces, Energy Star appliances, low VOC to no VOC tiles and flooring and paints and adhesives. We have bamboo.
What is VOC?
Volatile organic compounds.
Okay.
And those are how you paint a house,
right?
And it smells bad. Well, that's volatile organic compounds you're smelling, and they're bad for you. And so we using low VOC paint can eliminate that. And now the options are increasing. I think there's a lot more attentiveness to creating the tools that developers and builders need to do a better job at protecting our environment and addressing issues of global warming. Low VOC windows. We actually, in one of the Rosa Parks buildings, put in geothermal cooling and heating, which is the only building we ever did it in. And it's an excellent system, but it has a cost-benefit crossover that's a little too far in the future. So we haven't done it again, but interesting nonetheless. And but just trying to I think that we're in a unique position as affordable housing developers to sort of reach in and use our disposition as a developer to build sustainable housing. Chicago has a very high asthma rates and very high asthma death rates. At one point, it was the highest asthma death rate in the U.S. I don't know if it still is, but asthma rates are very high, and so we started to really look at, and Humboldt Park's asthma rates. The Sinai study showed that asthma rates in Humboldt Park are even higher than the city's average. So we spent a lot of time looking at how can we address this issue through the design of our housing. So we began to look at green retrofits. We began pulling carpet out, putting in, using low VOC paints to no VOC paints, changing our flooring. And because good housing design can also have a good health impact on people. As a matter of fact, that's what a lot of people have opted to live in our green buildings and to live in our smoke-free buildings, just to try to improve their own health disposition or their children's health disposition.
So I look at this corner that we're on.
Mm-hmm.
This is Drake and Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember across the street with
Mm-hmm.
this block, we used to have block club meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest complaint at the block club meeting
Mm-hmm.
was that lot that you all build
Mm-hmm.
on across the street
Mm-hmm.
there, on the southeast corner,
Mm-hmm.
right? They used to always complain about it, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's filled in with a beautiful building. I look
Mm-hmm.
at this building.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be a vacant lot.
Mm-hmm.
I look at several buildings. Would you say you have about 23 buildings in this 23 lots that you filled in over in this area?
Yeah, even more lots than that, because some of the buildings
Double
are
lots,
on
right.
double lots.
Yeah,
And,
so you filled in a lot of vacant lots. And this is
even in this area specific, yeah.
Yeah, and this is a beautiful block. It's quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And so you encourage all of your residents to get involved
Absolutely.
with the community.
Mm-hmm.
You make them all go. I shouldn't say you make them, but you encourage them to go to the CAPS meetings.
Mm-hmm.
If there any disruptive residents, they got to be least compliance and morally compliant. I would have to say that you all don't take no mess. I know you all feel like it's a right, but it's a privilege to be able to pay, say, have a decent saving on rent and have a decent place to live that's secure and safe and all of those things. And you try to get your folks active in the community and the block clubs and all those different things. So I think that's a great thing. Now, Joy, when I know we may have lost people when we started talking about different levels of funding and all of those things, but folks need to know affordable housing people who do these things. It takes a lot to do it. You have to have financial people working for you, people with architectural skills, engineering skills, or whatever the case may be, to make sure everything is right. There's a lot that goes into building these buildings. I know in your position at the Rehab Network, one of the things that you all do is try and have meetings where you invite all of the affordable housing people or people who's interested in affordable housing, and you all kind of teach them how to do affordable housing and manage it, and and the numbers and everything. And you usually do and I've been wanting to come to your class. You usually do the
Community building.
Community building course.
I do.
Yeah, but you also, don't you do the course on the financing too? Do you do the
There are
financing?
other people that do the financing class for the Rehab Network. I do. I also do another workshop for the Chicago Community Loan Fund on organizational readiness and project design. And so I love teaching, and I love building the skills of our field. And so I've taken very much of an interest and set my own time aside, because that's something I don't have a lot of, is free time, to try to teach people in the field and do a better job.
Yeah.
And both through the Rehab Network and through the Chicago Community Loan Fund.
So I also know that you all, you do a lot for families with your affordable housing, which is very important, because there are a lot of families. In particular, there's a lot of single women who's raising children and need affordable place to live, whether they work or not. They need help, and I know you all push for that. But I also know that, I was just reading a study that was just saying that there's 10,000 baby boomers a day who are retiring, right? And a lot of these folks are on fixed incomes. And a lot of them can't afford the $3,000 a month rent that's happening in the downtown area for a 1,000 square foot place. What is it, like $3 a square foot?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's what the rents are starting to go for.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, some are getting as much as $350 and maybe more. And I know a lot of folks can't afford that, especially on a fixed income. And so, but also, along with the families and the baby boomers who are becoming elderly. I shouldn't say, I'm a baby boomer, I don't want to say I'm becoming elderly, but who are becoming older, who may have these fixed incomes, still need an affordable place to live, and may not be able to keep a home, right, like they used to, because they may be by themselves, husband may have died or whatever, and children may have left them, right, need a place to live. But also, be in the middle and having a child who goes to school, and as soon as they get out of school, they have this debt, right?
Yes, they do.
They come home with debt. If they do get a job, or when they get a job, they generally get entry-level jobs, which means they don't get paid as much as everyone else. Like they can go work for Google, but they're not getting the top salary at Google. They're getting entry-level salary at Google. True. So they got the entry-level salary, and they also have the student loans that they have to pay. So they like come out of school with challenges like that. So they're looking for places affordable to live. And so I think that our society, we tend to now, the funny thing is the baby boomers are retiring, and you have a whole bunch of them, 10,000 a day. The millennials are coming home, right? I don't know how many thousand a day are coming home, right? So they're coming home, and they're needing places to stay, and they're working for these companies. And, we all trying to capture them, because the baby boomers is one economy that's kind of, the economics of that is changing. But the millennials are the new economy, and they saying that now there's a Generation Z that's coming after the baby boomers. That's another economy, and they're kind of driving the economy, but they all need an affordable place to stay. And so we have to keep that in mind, when we build housing in our society.
I agree.
That everybody can stay here. Because we won't have these amenities, these corporations, none of these things moving to our city if we don't have places for people to live.
I agree. I think where we've seen the greatest mismatch in the economic theories of supply and demand has been in housing. And people's incomes are not going up at nearly the rate that housing prices are going up. And so, and what's being developed, before the housing market crashed, what was being developed was so far out of the reach of most people. And so I think we see everyone in our housing. We have people who are aging in place. We've got baby boomers. Nelson Mandela Apartments I was surprised to see that we had so many young people who were getting their first apartment, who had been living with their parents, they hadn't been able to find anything affordable, and who were getting their first apartment. And so we've done a lot of education on apartment, being an apartment dweller and being a good neighbor, being a good renter.
You educate your folks on being a good neighbor.
Sure.
Having an apartment.
That's part of keeping people engaged.
That's right.
I think people assume that renters are not interested in sort of the communities that they live and only homeowners are, but we don't find that to be the case. Most renters really care about where they live. And they want to live in a nice community, and they're willing to do something about it. When we give people patch to garden in, people garden. When there's a block for people to be active in, they get active. When there's CAPS meetings to go to, they go to CAPS meetings. Since people are interested in living in a community that they feel good about. And and so I think the whole resident engagement is important. And it's not just young people. I think young people, elderly people, we see people of all ages coming out of all walks of life.
All nationalities?
We have Latinos and African Americans that are living in our housing, but not exclusively. We have a growing Asian population. We've got Caucasians that live in our housing, and that really, sort of reflect some of the diversity in the community as well. Humboldt Park and Westtown and Logan Square have been largely African American Latino communities, and I think that our housing has been that sort of natural bridge for people to come together, to live together, to be part of a community together, and for a very long time, and has, I think, provided some natural place for Latinos and African Americans and people of other races to come together to, sit at tables in meetings, whether it's a resident council meeting or a CAPS meeting, or to come out to like a block club, to work together on something positive. And I think, it means something, it makes a difference.
Liz had put together Liz and MacArthur Foundation, if I'm not mistaken, put together a program called a New Communities Program, right? And Bickerdike was heading that up in this part, we still are, in this part of the city. And can you tell us what all areas those are? Is it just Humboldt Park, or? So
there's 14, there are 14, well there's more now.
So tell us a little bit about that, but before we do that, you all have something coming up in September, Joy.
We do. Next month we've got our membership barbecue, which will take place on September 16th. And from noon to 3, and it'll be right behind our office building. We convert our parking lot into a party place, and it's usually pretty well attended.
September 6th, noon to 3. Where's your office building?
Behind 2550 West North Avenue.
Okay,
right north in Rockwell.
Okay, is that a celebration for your 50th anniversary?
We're celebrating our 50th anniversary all year long, but we do have our 50th anniversary gala that we're planning for the spring, and now there'll be more information coming.
Fantastic. And if people wanted to find out how to rent Bickerdike apartments, what would they do?
They can stop by our property management office at any time, which is 2546 West North Avenue, or they can call 773-227-6332 is our property management.
You have a website?
We have a website, www.bickerdike.org. Bickerdike. So we have a website, www.bickerdike.org, which is BICKERDIKE.org.
And then also, you're a not-for-profit.
Yep.
Can people donate to you?
They absolutely can.
They can give you money.
Especially for our 50th anniversary.
So philanthropists can give you money.
They
to help
can,
with
and they do,
housing.
and we would invite others.
All right, fantastic. And they can go to the website to do that if they wanted to.
They can go to the website to do that. They can make a donation
right online. What about volunteers? Do you get volunteers?
Yeah, we absolutely. We have events all the time that people can volunteer at. We have 2 community gardens that people from, we have a lot of people that work in our community gardens, and that's a wonderful place. We always invite people to take part in community gardening and to take part in events, so they can If they're interested in volunteering, they can call our main office at 773-278-5669.
Okay. I need you to look for some more lots in this community. We need some more housing built.
Okay.
All right? I'm serious.
I know.
We need to fill in these houses before the community become gentrified.
Yes, I agree.
Because it's coming this way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to allow folks
We
for
feel
an
that.
opportunity to be able to stay in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming west and it's going strong. And pretty
Yeah.
soon, these houses are going to be $1 million, like
You're right.
like in Eckhart Park,
Yeah.
or $2 million.
You're right.
So we need to make sure regular folks can still be able to, or I should say regular income folks, still be able to have an opportunity to live in their community.
I think part of it is getting control of land and then creating projects on that land, both those that we do right now and those that we can do in the years ahead. And I'm not talking decades ahead, but in the close future. I agree with you.
So I want to thank you very much for your advocacy for not only people in Bickerdike, but also people throughout the city of Chicago. Your work with the Rehab Network. Grateful that you all actually came and marched on my office, trying to force me to allow you to build housing. And I said, okay, let's do it, right? You know, it took you all by surprise, but I'm glad that you all connected with me, and we've been able to help a lot of people to have some nice, decent, and safe housing on the west side.
And thank you for your partnership. I think you've been a leader among the aldermen in the city of Chicago for affordable housing, supporting projects not just like Bickerdike's projects, but also through the Affordable Requirements Ordinance. And I think you've been probably one of the strongest allies in the city for affordable housing and making sure that Chicago residents have decent places to live.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, thank you very much. Joy, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching Network 27. Make sure you look up Bickerdike if you're looking for a place to stay that's decent and affordable. And please, if you can donate some money to them, donate some money to them. They're helping people not only to live in housing, also to get involved in communities, but also they help folks get jobs. They employ a lot of these people who live in their housing. So help them to help themselves. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching Network 27. Don't miss our Stay in School picnic, August 26th from 10 o'clock to 5 o'clock at Union Park on August 26th. We appreciate any and everything that you all can do. Let's encourage our children, young folks, to stay in school, but also let's allow for the rest of the family, including the seniors, to come and have a good time. God bless you all. Thank everyone for putting the show on. I love you, Joy. You know that. See you next month on Network 27. Thank you.